Hello and welcome to Open Mind Fest 2020. My name's Ali and I'm from Erskine Arts. We're one of the partner organisations who have been taking part in Open Mind Fest over the past few years. Of course, things are a little bit different this year, but thank God for the internet. And at our 2019 event for Open Mind, we hosted an industry panel featuring Simon of Frightened Rabbit, and we spoke a little bit about tiny changes. So this year, I'm delighted to be joined by Neil Hutchison and Cara Brown from Tiny Changes. Guys, would you just like to give us a wee introduction to yourselves?
Hi Ali, thanks for having us on today. Happy to be here talking to you. I'm Neil Hutchison. I'm one of the trustees of Tiny Changes. Tiny Changes, I'm sure we'll get into, is a charity that we set up, that my family and I set up about a year and a half ago now, after the death of my brother Scott, who was the singer in Frightened Rabbit. And we are 2020 is a big year for Tiny Changes. We're past the kind of set up phase, and we're starting to get out there and hopefully make a difference. So I'm delighted to have Cara on board working with us as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, hi. I'm Cara and I work for Tiny Changes. I've been involved for just over half a year now, and I've been working with the trustees to help set the charity up. And we have some really exciting work ahead of us, and it's a total privilege to be part of this organisation. My background is in children and young people's human rights. I've done a lot of work with young women over the years, and I also sit on the First Minister's Advisory Council on Women and Girls. So I have another role in addition to this. And I just feel very passionately myself, and also through the work that I've done with young people, about making Scotland a better place for children and young people to learn about and adapt to mental health issues.
That's amazing. It's so good to hear the experience that you've got, and you must have had quite a journey, going through different organisations and being able to support them in different roles, and it's really exciting. Did you say it was just 6 months?
It's been a few more than 6 months now. It's probably been more like 8 or 9 months. I was working for the Children's Commissioner prior to this, and I heard about Tiny Changes because I love Frightened Rabbit.
Yeah.
And I was following what was happening, and it's such an exciting thing to be part of. It's a charity with so much potential, and there's so much work that needs to be done on children and young people's mental health, and there's always more that can be done. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been an exciting thing to be part of, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to all the things that we'll be able to do together.
Yeah, it's really cool. I see you've got your cat with you today as well, kind of making a guest appearance.
She might make, there might be a couple of cameos.
It's really amazing to hear people's journeys and where they've ended up. It's certainly Erskine Music and Media Studio, and now Erskine Arts is something that I never expected that I would be involved in when I was younger, and being in a band myself, growing up and having similar experiences of the real highs and the real lows, to take those experiences into a project like this. We've ended up working with a variety of young people who are looking for experience in music and creative industries, and being here today and speaking to you guys is something I hadn't maybe envisaged 5 or 6 years ago, but it's amazing that the project has grown into something that is going to be able to support people in the future, and hopefully with Erskine Arts and networking with organisations like yourself, we'll hopefully be able to support people for years to come. So Erskine Arts is part of the Open Mind Fest. So this year's theme is perspectives. It's all about perspectives, and I suppose everybody has a different perspective in all areas of life, and particularly with the music and creative industries. And I suppose one of the questions I'd like to ask you guys is, why do you think it's so important for young people today to have that safe environment to help develop creativity? Those young people who are, the dreamers. Why do you think it's important for young people to have that safe environment? Those that are that kind of school age, where it's not just about academic matters.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and it's definitely. I'm a passionate believer that music and the arts is, really important, um, from a mental health perspective, for young and old,
Yeah,
old people like me, but certainly from a young person's perspective, I think that there's I don't know if it's even more important these days when there's a lot of other pressures that perhaps haven't been present in the past, and I think being able to express yourself through music or through art or any other creative endeavor is really really important. Certainly from speaking from Scott's perspective, both Scott and my other brother Grant were in the band Frightened Rabbit, and they both started their journey at high school.
yeah,
They were really lucky that the high school that we went to, had a good great music department. They just built a new music block, which makes it sound much grander than it was. It was like a big garage, but it was really amazing. And they spent a lot of time there, playing music, learning how to play music, learning how to write music. And I'm sure that was part of what led Scott on to the art school in Glasgow, and that kind of
yeah,
furthered his own creative ambitions. So I think it's really important because it's really important, but I think it's also really important because it helps people if they can just go into a room and express themselves without worrying about being criticised or
yeah.
it's just they're doing something creative for themselves. I think that's really really important in today's world, as it always has been, but I think particularly in today's world.
Yeah. I think that a safe space, sometimes it's out with school. So when you're not with your teachers or parents, can be a really good space to have conversations about mental health, or difficult things that you're facing that you might not feel comfortable as a young person, like sharing with an adult that
Yeah.
you maybe don't want to know some of your secrets or things that you're feeling. So yeah, I've seen a lot of safe spaces being really powerful in that way. And I remember that myself when I was younger, like even talking about like sex or sexuality or things that you might not want to ask your parents, or family members or teacher. Like if someone can facilitate that safe space, and you know that it doesn't matter what you say there, and then you can ask questions that you might be a little bit nervous to ask otherwise, and it's safer than Googling it and getting the wrong information. And some of the projects that we are supporting, so one in particular that I can think of is working with young people, and they're making music, and it's helping them with their mental health. And I think that you don't always need to talk about mental health in order for it to be therapeutic or helpful. Sometimes doing art or being creative in any way can help you process your emotions and maybe even express things that you don't know how to express in words.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's also really important that the arts are a part of it.
I think that's a really interesting point you make, Cara, just about like you don't even have to be involved in something. I think just that element of just being there, there's no pressure to be something, or like you're saying, Neil, those are our formative years, when we're grown up and we're in high school and we're being told, what do you want to be when you're older? It's like even that is like a huge pressure. Maybe we need more spaces like that to create those friendships and a bit of creativity. I really like that.
I think it is important when you're in those formative years, as you put it, Ali, that because I think if you don't have it, it's much more difficult to get it back.
Yeah.
I think if you start yourself down a route in your teenage years or before where you don't feel like you can be yourself or you can express yourself, or that perhaps you don't have that safe environment, you're very likely to carry that on to later adulthood. And it's difficult to then to get that back. You know, you really need that. That's the time when it's most important, I think.
I never really thought about that point about missing out on that opportunity to develop those relationships, and maybe that does lead to dealing with situations difficult in the future if you've not had those experiences when you're younger.
Well, definitely. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why when we set the charity up that we decided to go for to focus on children and young people's mental health. You know, there might have been more obvious areas of mental health for us to focus on, suicide prevention, for example, or even kind of, you know, dedicated to music and the arts, you know, given that's what Scott was kind of about. But I think we felt that the greatest impact we could have and some of the biggest gaps as well in terms of services and support that's available just now are at that children and young people end of the spectrum. So and it has and like you say, it then has that they grow up to be mentally healthy adults. So as well as addressing issues that the young people are having today, it hopefully embeds good practices and good mental health that they take into their later adulthood as well.
Our young guys get to come out on live events and set up PAs and lighting and do sound and put up staging and things like that, and just having that. And that's how I got into music. My sister was in a band, and I got to tag along, you know, lifting the amps and helping setting up for gigs, and that's what really inspired me. You know, just being, again, it's the environment thing. It's going back to that environment and space again. It's, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. There's also there's something about belonging there as well.
Yeah, I feel definitely.
Like something that really helps with mental health in general is feeling like you're part of something and you belong. And I ran a project a few years ago which was introducing people who hadn't been to the Edinburgh festivals to the festivals. And it was a big group of people aged like 13 to 67, and it was all women, and they a lot of the questions that I guess because I come from quite a privileged background, like I had access to all of the arts when I was younger, but the questions that I hadn't thought of that they were asking were like, what do I wear when I go into those spaces, or you know, like who will be there, like what will it be like, and like going to see comedy or music or theatre when you've never done that before can actually like make quite a lot of anxiety in people. So having those experiences and creating more of that for people when they're younger, particularly for families that can't afford to or might just not be tapped into those worlds, makes such a difference as you get older, because you feel like you're part of it and you belong. Which I think we need to do more of in Scotland.
Why do you think we turn to music specifically when we need to feed our emotions now, whether that be in a happy place or in so many cases in times of need or at a low point in life? Myself, when I'm having a bad day, my first reaction is to stick on a tune, Elbow, or sometimes a band that I maybe turn to. There's an LCD Sound System song which I've been listening to recently, which just kind of, if I'm feeling, you know, I'm just not feeling vibes, you know, wake up maybe just feeling a bit low, I'll stick this tune on and it just changes things. Why is music so powerful in that way?
I've got to ask Ali, which tune is it?
The track is called Someone Great. You know, LCD Sound System, Someone Great. It's got a build, like not even from the lyrical content of it. I think, like you're saying, like the vibrations and the feel that it gives you. You know, makes you feel good, or makes you feed that emotion.
I think I can only really speak for myself, I suppose, in terms of music, and I'm always suspicious of people that don't like music or don't have music taste. I just don't understand that. I mean, a lot of people, I don't know, I guess like there's the different people identify with different elements of the arts, whether that's books or cinema or theatre, but for me it's music. It's always been my kind of go-to, both in terms of just listening to music or just picking up the guitar and strumming it. I find it enormously beneficial, and really kind of mind-opening as well. I like to listen to music that maybe I don't fully understand. So I like you, I have my kind of go-to artists or tracks that will always take me back to a certain place. But I also quite like listen to new music that I might typically not have heard, and I think that's that. I feel that benefits. It's something you have to think about without being too poncy about it. And I feel that massively benefits me. I'm sure there's there must be study after study showing the kind of reactions that music sets off in your brain and the rhythms, etc.
The
and
vibrations.
That'll go right back to the first caveman hitting a stone off a rock.
That felt great.
yeah. And then here we are today. Yeah. And now we've got LCD sound system. So
I get into Frightened Rabbit later on, I suppose through work, and a new work colleague of mine, Craig, who's been working for us for the past year. He introduced me more recently to Frightened Rabbit, and my own past experiences with music and suffering, a loss of my own in the past, and I wasn't even thinking about anything specific, but I was just writing notes for this podcast, and I had Frabbit on in the background, and there was just a real deep emotion, and all I was doing was trying to write some bullet points and some questions, but it was almost like a wee mini therapy session for myself, when I was writing stuff out, and it really got me thinking about things, and maybe sometimes we don't do that enough.
I think it's a good way to use music sometimes. Like, I know some people do that with film. Like, if they feel like they need to cry or they need to let emotion out, then they'll choose a film that they know makes them sad. And I use music in that way. Like, I was listening to an Eva Cassidy song last night, and I didn't even realise that I needed the cry, but it made me think of things that I wasn't expecting, and actually it felt quite good. It feels sometimes it's important to sit with the more difficult or uncomfortable feelings so that you're not bottling it up. So yeah, I sometimes use music like that, and then other times, like, I have playlists where I'm like, this is like my crazy dance playlist, and I'm just going to dance around the flat for 5 minutes, because I know I need that. So yeah, it's such a powerful thing, whether it's a sad emotion or a happy one or an angry one.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. I suppose I turned to music because I want it to, I suppose in the back of my mind I'm thinking I need something to pick me up here, but I never thought about it in the terms of I actually need something to help deal with those emotions. So like I need a vehicle for actually being sad. I've never really thought about it in that way, about like putting a movie on to have a right good cry.
I think music in particular, almost like a kind of a smell that you recognise, takes you to a certain place. For me anyway, I kind of, so if I'm listening to music from my teenage years, I'll have a kind of quite a clear image in my head of where I was when I was listening to that, whether it's my kind of childhood bedroom or a mate's house or a gig that I went to, or we might have played it in a high school band that was in. So I think it's that kind of, it evokes memories, so as well as emotions, as well as the kind of lyrics, it bringing emotions to the surface. I think there's something soothing about having those memories evoked as well.
Yeah. How I listen to music is I'll maybe stick a specific tune on Tidal or whatever streaming platform you're using. Other ones are available, and it'll go off on its own wee journey. It'll just start playing related tracks from different bands, and I think I found a lot of new music just by putting that one song on, and then it goes off on its own wee journey, and it does it for you. You don't need to really think about it.
Yeah, I love that too when you get recommended. I also love, and I know Neil's a fan as well, but I love a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm still a big radio listener. I find, like, I live alone, and obviously in lockdown, that's been like challenging. It's been okay, but having the radio on or the podcast is really nice because it feels like there's people around and it takes you somewhere else. And I've found a lot of new music through that as well. yeah, I always have done with the radio, but even more so with podcasts.
What is the cat called, so we can make a reference?
The cat is called Nina Simeone. Or Meown. Nina Simeone. Yeah.
Mina Simeon. That's fantastic.
You know, I guess for a lot of young people, you know, they might not be grade 8 on the piano or, you know, a virtuoso guitar player, but you can go along and hit something, or just be in the room when there's music being played, or listen to music and identify with that. So I think that's really a really beneficial thing for young people to do, both from the perspective of being part of that community, but also using their creative brains and fueling that side of things. I think is very beneficial to their mental health.
I like that idea of, you know, for young people, it's that they're creating their own soundtrack to their own life, and like you were saying, Neil, about, you know, you can pinpoint a time in life when a track comes on, you know, and it's having that relation to music and a period in your life when you're growing up. I think that's really interesting. What sort of coping mechanisms been brought up in a society where there's stress? Young people are talking about stress, mental health, poverty, social disconnect. You know, feeling like they're not a part of life. Maybe people that don't have access to the projects that Tiny Changes are working with, and projects like Erskine Arts. You know, so what do you think are the coping mechanisms that young people can use for mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really tough, isn't it? I mean, you know, when you're young or old, when you're not feeling great mentally and you're in a difficult situation, it is difficult to see a way through that.
Yeah.
And so kind of coping mechanisms might feel a little bit trite, you know, to kind of say, oh, well, I'll just go for a walk, or you know, stick a CD on or something like that.
Yeah.
I think people, I certainly, you know, I think that's my experience. Not that I don't come from a deprived background, but you know, I find it, with my respect to my own mental health, difficult to kind of trigger myself out of that, if you like. So I suppose it's more about learning the habits that you can maintain in order to keep your mental health, you know, above the line, kind of thing. And I think that'll vary from person to person. You know, there's loads of different things you can do to get yourself, you know, back in the present moment. You know, if your problem is anxiety and you're worrying about the future, just bringing yourself back into the room and you know, maybe kind of identifying with your breath, or you know, some sort of mindfulness practice or something like that, I think is a good thing. You know, for some people, you know, I think talking to someone can almost never do any harm. Scott was, you know, Scott kind of articulated himself through mainly through his songs and, you know, kind of interviews that he did, etc. But you know, and he spoke fairly openly about his mental health.
Yeah.
And I know that was something that, you know, that helped him to be able to do that. Now he had a platform, but I mean, I think you know, there's hopefully most people, young people included, have someone that they trust that they can talk to about how they're feeling. Now, I know a lot of people won't, but you know, I do think that's really, really important, and it might not be a professional or a teacher or a family member. It might be, I don't know, Mrs. Jones down the street, but you know, it's just having someone that you feel you can talk to without crucially without stigma or discrimination.
Yeah.
is I think is really important for coping.
I think, like, for me, I would have really benefited from more support when I was younger. And I think that, so I'm 31, and when I was at school and even into university, mental health was still quite taboo, and there was a lot of stigma around it, and there still is today. But the positive side of it is that we're starting to talk about mental health more, and there are so many brilliant resources out there. A lot of them are online, so if people don't have access to the internet, then that's something that we as a charity are looking at. Like, how can we advocate for more support for people who don't have access to online resources? But there are also phone lines that you can call. There are people out there who it's their job or their voluntary job, and they really do want to listen, and that's for children, little children up to teenagers and people in their 20s. But yeah, I think there is always somebody out there who would be up for listening. And I've found that at the point when I was in my 20s, when I finally understood my mental health better and I realised what clinical depression is and what anxiety is, I then asked for help, and that was probably the best coping mechanism that I ever discovered. Was that I don't need to do it alone, and also whatever you're going through, whatever country you're in, household, there will be somebody else who's going through the same thing, so you're not alone even when it feels like it. And for me, that was such a powerful and important thing to learn, because it's helped me to understand myself, my mental health, and what I can do to maybe stop it spiraling or getting worse. It took time, but it's an important thing to know that you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's like making it the norm, that there is a community of people there that don't have access to speaking to somebody, and we should be making it a more part of society, that it's normal to pick a phone up and phone a hotline, or to chat with somebody online through an official channel where you can get support, and I think that's maybe breaking down those barriers for young people.
Like, I said that recently on social media, and I realised I'd never said it before. I was like, I've phoned a helpline. Because actually, I think sometimes, like, I've experienced this. I've worried, like, do I need that? Like, am I going a bit crazy? Like, I don't really, I've got lots of friends and family I could phone, like, but then in those dark moments, like, if you have one, or it doesn't even need to be a very dark moment, like, it's okay to make that phone call, and it doesn't matter who you are. And actually the people on the end of the phone are just the same. Like, they're nice people who have a chat, and it's actually totally okay. But I felt sometimes we don't know who's done that, and we don't know if other people have done it. And so when I shared that, I actually felt a little bit scary to share. And then once I'd done it, I was like, I'm so glad I've told people that it's okay to do that, and that I've done it.
What sort of things do you think we can change? So maybe one thing you think would make a big change to society, the way we live, how our country works, to protect young people, especially taking into account the situation that we're in at the moment.
I don't know if this is one thing. It's a kind of big umbrella thing, but I think we still need to do work to reduce the stigma associated with mental health. I think with as long as that's around, it almost doesn't matter what else you do. You could triple, quadruple, multiply by 10 the amount of investment you put into kind of mental health services or school counsellors or whatever, but as long as people still worry that they might be discriminated against if they put their hand up and say that they are having an issue, there's no point. So I think that, and I think we shouldn't be too quick to congratulate ourselves as a society that is gone, because it's not. We're nowhere near having mental health on parity with physical health. And Cara, you were talking about your experience of growing up, so it has improved. Certainly from when I was young and into Maurice says it's better, but there's still a long way to go. So I that's not a that's maybe not one thing. There's a whole load of things that contribute to that. But I think if you don't address that, then everything else will be less successful.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I would like to see change. So I guess that the philosophy behind Tiny Changes and Scott's legacy that we are taking forward is the idea that tiny changes can build up to something bigger. And so I think that's helped me as we're building up the charity and we're working on it. It's going to take a lot of small changes and everybody being part of that to create collective action that will make a difference. I wish there was one thing that we could do that would make every young mind feel better.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be this, like domino multiplier effect. And that's exciting because it means that everybody has a role and it's possible to make a really big difference if we all come together and make tiny changes in different ways. And I agree, one of those is tackling stigma. There are so many things that we can do, including looking at, for me, like the structural inequalities within society and within politics.
Yeah.
If we could tackle that, that would also make a huge difference, because we know that more marginalised groups of children and young people are disproportionately affected by mental health issues. So tackling that inequality would also be a huge step forward to improving mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that leads us nicely into discussing some of the projects that you guys are working on Tiny Changes, some of the new stuff, some of the projects that you've currently got on. So could you maybe just tell us a wee bit about what's happening in Tiny Changes?
Cara, I think I'll let you take that one.
Okay. What's happening in Tiny Changes? So we have a very exciting announcement coming up next week on the 29th of May. And keep an eye on our Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, because we're going to be announcing a new project with musicians, bands and young people, and it's something that everyone can get involved in, and we're really looking forward to it. So do check that out. We have a COVID-19 emergency fund that we launched earlier this month. We felt as an organisation and team that we really wanted to do something to make a difference, because we know that this is an extraordinary time.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a global pandemic still, and we are very worried about the impact that it's having on children and young people's mental health. And we've heard from over 70 charities the difficulties that young people are facing across Scotland. We're not surprised, but it's hard to read and to hear about. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to make a difference in a small way as a charity.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so we'll be announcing where some of that funding is going next week.
One of the things that Tiny Changes can do, we've got, because of who Scott was and his profile, a lot of that, we Tiny Changes is a reasonably high profile charity. We have quite a lot of followers on our various social channels. So we can use that to get messages out there. And one of the messages, which is very much aligned to the topics we've been talking about today, is just whilst we're going through this this lockdown, and whatever comes after it, music is something that we've still got, and it's something that we can experience together, even if we're not actually together. So it's fairly simple, just kind of putting people's just pointing people towards a playlist, listen to some songs, and just knowing that there are other people not in the same room as you, but not even maybe in the same city or country as you, that are having the same experience. And I think that's just that kind of togetherness is very much part of the ethos of the charity, and I think is really important just now.
I would just really like to thank both of you for coming on and having a chat. I know you're both extremely busy and you've got a lot of work. with Tiny Changes, and we just want to wish you the best for all of the projects that you're working with and all the organisations that you're supporting. We wish you all the best for the work you're doing, especially for young people and through music. So we just want to say a big, massive thank you.
No, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Bye, guys.